Greetings, everyone. So tonight's title for our presentation is E-Supply Chain Solutions to Reduce the Bullwhip Effect. We will be discussing the Bullwhip effect from a general overview to begin with, followed by the e-supply chain solutions that are available in today's market. And to tie everything together, we'll be presenting a real-life case study and ending everything with a conclusions and critics. So, what is the Bullwhip effect? It was first noticed by J. Forrester in 1961, and he defined it as the tendency of replenishment orders to increase in variability as it moves up the supply chain. In the following years, it actually have been named by the Bullwhip effect by Procter and Gamble. And the causes of the Bullwhip effect are several, but in essence, there are four main causes behind it. The first of which is demand forecast updating, followed by the order batching, and this uh, depends heavily on the type of the order batching that takes place in the organization. The next cause of the Bullwhip effect is the price fluctuations and how the promotions and sales that are taking place can affect the consumers' purchasing patterns. The last cause is the rationing and shortage gaming. Gaming is placing numerous orders for one product by one customer with the intention of receiving the fastest order fulfillment. As a result, the manufacturers tend to do the rationing on their behalf um, taking the demand of 50 by fulfilling the demand of 50% of what is being ordered, thinking that the other 50% are not real orders. And the impacts of bullwhip effect are numerous. For example, the excessive inventory investment, lost revenues, and missed production schedules. Now I will hand it over to my colleagues to speak about the e-supply chain solutions.
Now I'm going to talk to you about the information sharing and partnerships and the importance of this approach into reducing the bullwhip effect. So, uncertainty has been identified as a consequence of the lack of perfect information between the different members of the supply chain. Each member of the chain needs to forecast its product's demand. The degree of information sharing and order coordination will impact the level of integration in the supply chain. At the first level that we can see here, with a very simple supply chain structure, there is no order coordination nor information sharing between retailer and manufacturer. Each member manages their inventory levels and take decisions according to their forecasting. Retailer uses customer demand and manufacturer uses retailer order. This level of information sharing is known as decentralized control. On the second level, or coordinated control, the retailer and manufacturer inventories are coordinated as customer demand is shared between the two players. The manufacturer inventory decision is made based on customer demand and retailer's order. At the third level, defined by the authors as centralized control, the optimal performance of the supply chain can be achieved. Information can be retrieved in a synchronized way by both the retailer and the manufacturer. The use of EDI makes the synchronization possible. Also, vendor managed inventory can be adopted and is going to be explained further by my colleagues. As the information sharing increases, the bullwhip effect reduction also is increased. Some of the benefits of the information sharing are reduced costs, reduced inventories, and it helps mitigate the uncertainty that leads to order amplification. But especially important is the fact that products are manufactured at the right time, right quantity, and distributed to the right location. Some of the standards and technologies that support information sharing are electronic data interchange that allows transmission of POS or point of sale data in real time to all players of the supply chain. Also, the point of sale and vendor managed inventories that are going to be covered in further detail in the next slides. To further emphasize the importance of information sharing and partnerships in the supply chain, Mason Jones et al. Described that uncertainty occurs in these four major areas: controls, manufacturing, demand side and supply side. Given all these areas are equally significant and equally important, management usually take two decisions. The first one is to try to improve performance of manufacturing by reducing lead times and improving quality levels. Usually, this is done via the application of lean thinking methodologies. The second approach is when managers try to tackle by working the bullwhip effect by working closely with suppliers via partnership sourcing programs. After having taken these two actions, managers still realize there's operational uncertainty, and the reason for this is that the demand side and the control systems still represent a source of uncertainty in the supply chain. It can be simpler to change the shop floor or change suppliers that take strategically actions that involve all the players. On the traditional information pipeline that is shown on the figure, order information is subject to bias, noise, and delays before it goes to the next player. And the farther the player is in the supply chain, the greater the uncertainty of real customer demand is. On the enhanced supply chain information pipeline, market sales data is shared equally to all players of the supply chain. The speed of information is a key aspect on this approach, and a point of sale linked to each level in the supply chain allows to achieve this goal. Equally important is the quality of the information shared. Decisions on the enriched supply chain are made based on the actual customer demand rather than pure internal sales data. A good example of this approach is Walmart and Procter & Gamble. Walmart now shares all its customer demand data with Procter & Gamble, and in turn, Procter & Gamble takes the information and decides how much stock to deliver to the store to meet customers' demand. The rationale behind this approach is to create strong relationships with suppliers that will, in turn, to better service to the customers and profits to the whole chain.
So far, we've seen what the bullwhip effect is and some of the impacts that it can have on businesses. Now we will go through some of the methods through which inventory can be managed better through e-supply chain solutions. As shown in the picture, VMI or vendor managed inventory involves the client sending demand information to the supplier, who then fulfills these demands based on the recent information they have received. This allows them to respond to volatile demand patterns faster and more efficiently, and research has shown that in turn minimizes the bullwhip effect. One huge example of VMI systems is Walmart. They were able to achieve a high level of coordination between various stakeholders through a centralized database, store-level point-of-sale systems, and satellite networks. All of this helped them manage their demand projections, which in turn reduced the bullwhip effect. The next method we will see is called the point-of-sales data. As mentioned previously, through point-of-sales data, the suppliers are able to adapt to restocking and managing their inventories based on real-time user patterns. The last technique related to inventory management is called RFID or radio frequency identification. As shown in the picture, timely and accurate data sharing is key. RFID, as we all know, are radio frequency IDs. It provides accurate information on inventory, reduction in labor, cost, automation of various operations and processes, and ability to audit and find errors sooner in the supply chain. Research has shown that such improved product visibility, improved data sharing, safety stock reduction, and early sharing of information enabled by the use of RFIDs helps in reducing the bullwhip effect.
Another way to mitigate the bullwhip effect is a forecasting. As the Anjali said, the point of the sale, it gave us the very important data about the historical demand. But how we can use this data to forecast the future demand? E-supply chain use the different techniques, which I'm going to talk about the three of them. The first one is a simple moving average. In simple moving average, first thing we should to find out the average period, which in this example I choose the 3 months, and then we have to find out the three most recent demand. For example, for the months August is July, June, and May. To calculate the future demand, we have to add the demand of these 3 months and divide it by the average period, which is 3 months. And the result is gonna be 170. And if we deduct this price, this amount from the actual demand, we're gonna have the minus 45, which is error and the bias generated through this method. The good point of this method is the quickness and the ease of use, and the weakness of this method is it forget the previous demand. The second one is a weighted moving average. In the previous method, we saw that all the period has the equal weight, but in this method, we are going to give the weight to each period, and the highest weighted is gonna assign to the most recent demand. For example, for the month August, if we want to calculate the weighted moving average, we have to give the highest weight, which is 55%, to the month July, and add all of them, and we're gonna have the 176.75, which is the for a future demand for the month August. If we deduct it from the actual demand, which is 125, we're gonna have the error of minus 51.75, which it shows the bias from come out from this method. It's lesser than the previous method. The last method is exponential smoothing method. It's similar to the weighted moving average method. The difference is that the calculation of the weight is different. The weight in the previous method was calculated by the human, which is forecasting team and the marketing department. But to calculate the smoothing constant, we are using the mathematical equation. And now I'm going to talk another way of forecasting, which is used by the online retailer. These days, some online retailer, they are not using the point of sale data because they think that these are about the previous data and historical data. They use the information they get from the customer behavior. Amazon is one of those online retailer which use the feature on its website which called wish list. So people who are a member in the Amazon, they list their product, the items which they like to have in the future. For example, for the birthday, anniversary, and Christmas, and they share it with their friends. So in this way, Amazon can understand how many items they have to stock and how many items they should have for their inventory.
Another solution to mitigate the bullwhip effect is the just-in-time. Just-in-time was introduced by Toyota in the 1950s, but it was only until the 1980s that it was implemented by Western companies. The basic principle of just-in-time is that inventory equals waste, and therefore the processes must change their operation. Processes should change from push to pull. Traditional processes were push processes. As you can see here in the figure on the screen, to the left side we have a push process where operation 1 and operation 2 take place. Operation 1 has a regular schedule and sends product to operation 2. But if operation 2 is not fast enough, the product or material will start piling up and inventory will be created. Just-in-time suggests processes to be done with the pull strategy. In the pull strategy, as you can see to the right of your screen, operation 1 and operation 2 are the same. However, operation 2 has a signal and it asks for product from operation 1 using different information flows. In the screen, the signal is represented by a traffic light. Just-in-time can also have a wider approach, where we can include the entire supply chain, not only operation by operation. As you can see here in the screen, there's a very simple supply chain, where from the supplier to the firm to the customer. The flow of information of signals can be done by different methods: internet, RFID, or e-sensors. Back in the day, this flow of information was done by what's called the Kanban cards. One very successful example of just-in-time implementation is Dell Computers. Dell Computers is a company that, as is commonly known, triggers the entire manufacturing process when the customer places an order, which means that the traffic light, as we see it in the screen, as we see it represented by, as we see it represented the signal, will be the order put online.
In the case study, we're going to be looking at how centralizing internal information can reduce bullwhip effect. So a little background about the company. It's a mid-sized retailer with annual sales of $1 billion. It's operating in more than 20 locations. Each location could have more than one department store or convenience store. Corporate headquarters are responsible for setting the overall financial goals, merchandising policies, maintaining responsibility for financial reporting. The way the retailer is working right now is each location has a retail manager, and that retail manager is responsible for buying, forecasting, distribution, and replenishment. The buyers or merchandise managers report to the retail manager when the inventory is going down. Merchandising managers place an order via phone or email to the vendors. Vendors ship out the orders to the distribution center, and distribution centers ship out the order to the retail location. So this method was very costly, so retailer wanted to reduce the cost and reduce bullwhip effect. So he implemented a new system, which was he installed 128-bit scanners that captured the barcode of the product. All this information was being stored as soon as the product was scanned. This information was stored in a central database, and now corporate headquarters can look at the centralized system and see how many products are currently available in the store, how many do we need, and how is the store doing overall. So looking at the benefits, there was a comparison done with two store locations, location X and location Y. As we can see from the graph, after implementing the system, there was a cost saving of 33% in location X and 15% of cost saving in location Y. So to conclude our study, conclude our presentation, information sharing is considered one of the most important strategies for reducing or mitigating bullwhip effect. Information sharing through e-supply chain system not only facilitates effective sharing of information, it also allows fast dissemination of important data. It is essential for organizations to adopt measures to capture and store data that can be used for effective communication, inventory management, forecasting, and reporting. There are an increasing number of third-party vendors that provide out-of-the-box, cloud, and open-source solutions that can be adopted by organizations of various sizes. E-supply chains are playing an important role in mitigating the bullwhip effect, and the scope to leverage them is only limited by cost and technology used by the organization. Thank you. Any questions?